Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Timo Parker. I'm a vocal coach and I'm here to help you to improve your singing voice. In today's video, I want to talk about air pressure, why we should not use it and how we can spot it, what we can do to get rid of it. Just recently, I actually got a comment with a lot of great questions. So I want to read this comment and also refer to some of the questions that are asked in this comment. So here it is. Hi Timo, thanks for the video. This person, by the way, was watching this video that I'm going to link here about chest voice, 2 easy steps to find it. When you say not to tighten the stomach muscles, do you mean not at all? First question. My stomach muscles naturally contract even when I speak. Is this something I need to change? I don't really quite understand what you mean when you say not sing with air pressure. Do you want us to hold our breath when we do this exercise? Many thanks. This is actually a question that I get a lot, how to sing without air pressure, because if you've seen previous videos on this channel, you know that I talk a lot about not using air pressure, and I actually also explained already why we should not do it. I link it here, even though I will give a short recap on why not to use it, and then also some tips and tricks how to spot it and how to get rid of it. So there are actually 3 main reasons why people use air pressure. First of all, to increase pitch. You don't need air to increase pitch. I talk about this a lot on this channel. If you haven't seen any of my previous videos yet, you can head over to this playlist and learn a little more about singing with muscles. But basically, air is not required to increase pitch. We can do it, it's possible, but it's not really wanted. Because with increased air pressure, we make our vocal cords vibrate faster. It's like a flag in the wind. When there's no wind, the flag is not moving, and the more wind there is, the more it moves, and also you can hear the pitch changing from this flag. So a bit of a funny comparison, but this is what it is. Basically what's happening in here if you use air pressure. So when you use a lot of air pressure to increase pitch, there is a very high chance that over time you will lose more and more range because you're not using your muscles to increase pitch, and that means they're not getting trained and you need more and more air pressure to increase the pitch. It's a bit addictive in this way, but I come back to this point a little later. The second reason why people might use air pressure is because of volume. When you increase the amount of air that you're pushing through your body, you also increase the overall volume, but not necessarily in a way we want. Because in music, when we hear one note, we not only hear one note, we hear a series of overtones, a series of notes that come together and form this note. And we can actually make great use of these overtones when we are singing and try to amplify some overtones instead of the bass note, so to say, the root note. And when we're using air pressure, the only thing we are increasing is actually the root note and not necessarily the overtones. And that has to do with the reason that will come next. But in general, we want to increase volume by amplifying overtones that are cutting through a certain band constellation, because singers have a special formant, a special frequency range where they shine. It's between 2800 and 3300 hertz, depending on the singer. But this frequency range is really unique, and this is what we want to focus on. And we don't want to focus on the screaming mechanism using air pressure, because this is also what you hear in a stadium when fans are cheering for their teams. It's a beautiful thing, they have fun, they're singing, but most of them are not doing it in a way that is very healthy for the voice or either very powerful. So it sounds always screamed, and most of the times you get hoarse. So these are already 2 points that show why people might use air pressure, and already I gave you an explanation why this is maybe not a good idea to do it. And there's actually a third reason why we should avoid air pressure. I've just talked about fans cheering for their team in the stadium, or also when you sing along in a concert. It might have happened to you as well that you come out of the concert, of the sports game, whatever, and you are hoarse afterwards. And that is because of the air pressure. So when we are using air pressure, we are pushing our vocal cords out of their natural position. So we have in our throat the vocal cord and the false vocal cords, which lie above. And when we use pressure, we are pushing the vocal cords up, and then we create a contact between the false vocal cords and the vocal cords. And the reason why we are also cutting off the overtones and why a screamy sound doesn't necessarily sound very nice, or it's also not cutting through a mix so well, is because the vocal cords are getting pushed up and we are closing off this ventricle, so the space between false vocal cords and vocal cords. And this is our sound room, and if this sound room is closed, we are losing a lot of valuable volume, so a lot of overtones, which are very useful for music and for singing. Just the reason that you can get hoarse, and it's also not very healthy for your voice in general, I think this is already a reason enough why you should not use air pressure. At the end, you have to make the decision, but we are not really benefiting from air pressure. But before I talk about how to get rid of air pressure and also how to spot it, I would like to make a little differentiation between two types of pressure. Because in our body we have different ways to deal with pressure. And one is what I call internal pressure, when you, for example, lifting a very heavy object and you inhale a lot of air and you hold it in and you have maybe even a sound like I just did. Like, a sound like this. And you might be also familiar with the phenomenon of internal pressure when you go to the bathroom and do a certain business there, because this is what we are basically doing. We are pushing air to increase pressure inside of us. And this is most of the times audible, because when we are releasing this internal pressure, we create a sound, something like because our vocal cords open for a second and they release the pressure depending on how much we had inside of us. And this is already an audible proof. If you are using air pressure, you will have most likely this release sound at the end of a phrase. So if you're recording yourself, just made a video about it actually, that it is helpful for practicing. I'll link it here. Listen and look out for the sounds at the end of the phrase. If you have a release sound like I just did, it is very likely that you're using air pressure. Another way to deal with pressure is actually to build up the pressure and release it immediately. For example, when you're inflating a balloon, you inhale, you create some kind of resistance to be able to inflate the balloon. So this is something that can also happen. And this is also what most of the times happens when you are screaming. So you're pushing a lot of air through your system while you speak or while you sing. So the second type is more or less a forceful exhalation. So whenever we are breathing, our diaphragm is working for us, and that's a fact that is inevitable. When you are inhaling before a phrase and you feel a slight expansion in your tummy, or you feel a bit of movement there, that's okay. That's just the diaphragm that is working anyway. But what we don't want is to push extra air into our tummy. So to answer already one question from the comment, we don't want to engage our stomach at all. We might observe movement there because of our breathing, and that's okay, but we don't want to put any more pressure there. We don't want to engage our abdominal muscles, and we just want to overall stay relaxed in our stomach. And for a lot of people, it is very normal to engage their stomach when they are speaking or when they are singing. And that's why it is also really hard to spot in the beginning, because it is so much already in your system that it can be hard to spot. So when we talk about support, when you are singing, for example, for breath support, if you would like to call it this way, I like to focus on my rib cage, because as long as my rib cage can stay open, I'm able to sing a phrase and I don't have to put pressure on my tummy. I actually made already a separate video about the breathing process, so I'm going to link it here and not going to go into further detail. How do we spot air pressure in our body? So first of all, some things that are very typical when you're using air pressure is that towards the higher note, the volume also increases. So if you are not able, for example, to sing an interval, something like if you can't keep the low volume, if you're singing such an interval, I think I was singing right now 1, 5, 8, so root, fifth and octave. If you can't do this and your volume bumps up a lot towards the highest note, it is very likely that you're using air pressure. Also, you might feel a certain discomfort within your body when you are singing towards the higher note. But then again, if you're using constantly a lot of air pressure, you might not be able to spot it as an uncomfortable feeling, because you haven't experienced yet how it feels when you are not using air pressure. And two things are very helpful for this. First of all, you heard me doing a glissando. so I was not doing something like I was connecting all three notes by just slowly going up and back down. And this is helpful because if you're on the way getting louder or it feels more uncomfortable, you will feel it and hear it more easily. That's why a glissando is a perfect tool to spot air pressure. Another helpful tool is to use a big interval jump. So now I used 1, 5 and 8. So an octave is already a big interval jump for singing. There are not so many songs that require you to sing more than an octave in one phrase. Here and there it happens, but it's not so common. So start on a comfortable note where you're totally relaxed. You sing this note and then you pull it up to a fifth and maybe even to an octave. And you try to keep more or less the same volume. If it gets a tiny bit louder towards the higher note, that's okay. But as I have just demonstrated, there is not a big jump in volume when you're using, for example, head voice like I did right now. So if you would use air pressure, something like this could happen. So you're getting more into a screamy mode, and this is a pretty good indicator that you're using air pressure. So if you are able to use a quieter, relaxed sound and you can pull the note to the fifth and to the octave, this is an indication that you're using your muscles and you're not using air pressure. And again, try to start in a very comfortable register first and just try around with interval jumps or with songs that you're currently practicing or singing, and try to keep a low volume and stay relaxed. Another thing that you can try when you are singing and you're not sure if you're using air pressure or not, or maybe you're aware of it and you want to get rid of it and don't know how, one tip would be to massage your stomach. So give yourself slight gentle taps in your stomach, and if you would hold a lot of tension there, you would actually hear something like this happening. So if you are very tensed in your stomach and you're talking and you're pinching your stomach, you will hear a release like this, and this is the moment where your body lets go of this tension, and then you have a moment of release. So a gentle massage in the stomach, sometimes also lying down, can help. So find the right position for you where you can focus on your stomach, where you can relax and just let go. So there's one thing that can happen, and it's quite common, especially if you were used to using air pressure, is that you're not able to create certain notes. Air pressure can force your vocal cords together. So if you are trying to sing a note and it's not coming out, with this air pressure you are able to force this note. So it can feel like the voice is just disappearing, falling into a trap, and there's no sound coming out. And the way that you maybe previously handled this situation is by increasing air pressure to force the note. But this is actually the point where you have to relax and just hold this hole until it can close again. Because if you're constantly forcing your vocal cords together, they will get used to it, and then you will need this air pressure to make this note sound. And what we have to do is take away the air pressure and give the voice the space it needs to really create a sound there again. Shoot, it's not working. This last sound was actually a good example. It is very common that on notes where you were used to use a lot of air pressure, that these notes are not so easy to get anymore. But if you're waiting and you just relax and you wait for the sound, it will slowly come back. And this is the work that you have to do, especially on the notes where you used to push a lot, which is normally, if you have a breaking point in your voice, around this area where your voice would break. You don't have to have a breaking point in your voice. I'm also talking about it in the playlist that I've linked before here in the video. So if you are new, check it out and learn some more things about voice anatomy and what you can do to involve more and more muscles into your singing. So now you know how to spot air pressure when you are singing, and the amount of air pressure you're using can differ from day to day. Sometimes you are maybe a bit more tense, you're using more air pressure, on other days less. So that's something that you have to calibrate from day to day. But then actually comes the psychologically harder part, which is acceptance. In the moment where you take air pressure away, you are probably going to lose range if you used air pressure previously to sing high notes, and you're going to lose a lot of volume. And this makes your voice pretty small. And if you want to ground, if you want to train your voice, this is a very crucial step. You have to accept in the moment that your voice might not be as loud and as powerful as you thought because you were relying on air pressure, and you have to start training your muscles. And this is actually already a point where a lot of people give up because you have to take so many steps back. But the great thing is when you're doing it and when you're sticking to your workouts and you're training your muscles, you will go so far beyond this point where you were before when you were using air pressure. So you have to accept that your voice is pretty naked right now. You don't have the support of air pressure that makes it louder, more powerful, and also gives you a little bit more range. But this is the starting point where you have to start training your muscles and grow your range and also your volume. And I just want to say that if you're using air pressure and you're deciding to stick with it, you're not a bad person, you're not a bad singer. I just want to provide a way where you can sing freely without pressure, without feeling this anxiety towards the higher note. It is incredibly liberating if you don't have to be afraid of high notes anymore and if you can just relax. And I'm also convinced that once you've reached the level where you actually feel like, oh yes, my voice is growing, I feel stronger and it feels so great without using this air pressure, so much more comfortable and easier actually at some point, you will most likely will not go back to using air pressure. And we just have to be compassionate with ourselves and try to not listen to our ego that says you have to sing louder, you have to sound more powerful. Just focus on building your instrument and training the right muscles to grow it. So to wrap up this video, to answer this comment very quickly, we don't want to engage our stomach when we sing or when we speak. That's something that it's your choice. If you want to change it, I would recommend it. Second of all, I hope it's more clear what I mean when I say don't sing with air pressure. And the third point about holding air, yes, we want to keep the open space that we have after an inhale, but we don't want to create this internal pressure where we are holding our breath and creating pressure within. I hope this video was helpful to you. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like it and subscribe to my channel. Make sure to hit the notification bell so you're not missing out on my newest video. I thank you so much for watching this video and I see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.